This is my second floss tube. I'm Naomi from Bumble Stitches Pirates. I realized last time I did not exactly explain the channel name. It's basically a derivation of my enjoyment of Beauty and the Beast. It's, of all the Disney films, it's my favorite. Probably for the library scene. And on one of our trips to Disneyland, I saw a big tapestry of the ballroom scene. And then a birthday sometime later, that was the present. And then the pirate part is my husband loves pirates. He loves the ride, he loves the movies. There's some artwork that by an artist that's pirate and Disneyland inspired, and I think he's probably collected almost every piece of that artwork. So we have a pirate wall, we have a bell wall, and then I stitch. I cross stitch, I sew, I do some crochet, and very rarely, but I can do it, needle tatting. The only thing I can't do needle related is knit. I've tried, can't figure out the tension. We had an issue with noise on the last one. I filmed it in my living room, so this time I picked a bedroom on the back side of the house, hopefully get a little further away from the corner. I live on a four-way stop intersection. Right across from my house is the playground for an elementary school, and yet ever since, I mean, even before COVID, people would sometimes run the stop sign, but not nearly as bad as it was after COVID shut down the school, where all day, every day, instead of the 25 miles an hour that they're supposed to be going, they're probably doing 50 through the intersection without stopping. Motorcycles and souped up cars are the worst offenders. And even when you have all the windows shut, the noise still filters through. And I guess I've just tuned it out because I did not notice that it was as bad as even my husband said it was. So I've gotten good at tuning it out, I guess. So we'll see if the noise level is better back here. In the back corner bedroom. Maynia's off to an interesting start. I did relatively well in the first few days. I worked on the whips from last year, and as I mentioned in video 1, last year I started a new project on May 1st, and then around May 2nd or 3rd, I heard that a friend had gotten her miracle kidney, and so I started and finished a project. I just did a whole mess of days on that. So aside from the first, the rest of the first 7 or so days of May, I didn't have any whips to carry over from last year. So that meant I could kind of do whatever I wanted. So I put some whips that were started outside of Maynia into the rotation. And I also started a new start. Then we get to about halfway through that first week, 4th or 5th, and I went down the rabbit hole in my other hobby, which is genealogy, and I spent about 4 days doing nothing but chasing records, building trees, cross-referencing DNA matches on a project, and didn't do any stitching any of those days. Mother's Day was probably the day that I thought I wouldn't get any stitching done, and that's the day I did get some stitching done. So it's been a little bit hit and miss, but with one exception, I have stitched on projects with the birthday that I started last May, and we'll see if I can continue that through the end of the month, because the end of the second 2 weeks in May are when I did the majority of my new starts last year, and most of them have not been finished. So without further ado, I'll start showing what I have accomplished, and I will insert pictures later of where I was before I started, or before I worked on it this month. So the first piece I worked on was Letters from Hogwarts, and I worked on room 5, or letter 5, and pretty much just got the otter in. I'm modifying it. I'm not following the pattern exactly. So both of these items are actually in the design further down, and then you just have one Patronus. I'm doing 2. So I've got a sea turtle that's going to go here, and much to my husband's amusement, I flipped this 90 or 180. So it was with the head over here, and I wanted the head over on the right hand side, not the left hand side. So that's what I got done. Was I got the otter and the score scales and the part of whatever that other piece is, I don't remember, a weight maybe. And I am hoping to at least put some more work into that one throughout the year to get 1 or 2 more rooms done. I have 4 to finish, and then the top border and the bottom border. Then I had, having a bunch of time, I had a new start, and the new start I picked was the Owl Forest Embroidery's new Alice in Wonderland style. And the first day I got, so that's part 1. And I got everything except the bottom bit of this trellis done in the Pirate's Booty thread, in this color, the brownish green. And then later on in this last 2 weeks, I had a day where I wanted something that was already going, was kind of feeling this, so I pulled it out and got the red the Firebane piece put in, and then I started part 2, which this is a rose bush. So there's a rose that goes there, a rose that goes there, and I think some buds that go over here. And eventually there's a pot down there. And there's rose bushes and the deck of card symbols here, and then up here there's some more rose bushes and I think just hearts across the top. I'd have to look at it again. So we have that, and I'm just doing my own color variation on their they have a colorful version and a 3-color version for the Sal. And I looked at it and decided that I could probably pull from Stash variegated flosses that would work as a substitute for what they have put into their kits. So this color they call Bogwood, and the Pirate's Booty has some serious browns and then olivey green in it, variegated. So it's like olive green into tan back into olive green. And that's the Threadworks. And I went, it looks similar to what their picture shows for the color blends. I already had part 1, so I was able to see that, you know, it looked like an arbor. I'm like, you know, wood and trees. It'll work. And then the red was a red variegated that went from like pink to dark red. And I didn't have anything that was quite that, but I did have Firebane. And it has this dark bit. So what I did was I cut it in the middle of the dark bit. Helps if I lift it up. So I cut it in the middle of the dark bit. And then I ran into the problem of $50 yard skein. Doesn't fit very well on my key tags. So it was like, okay, do I break it up into 1,000,000 key tags? Or do I figure out something else to keep it all together? And somebody, I'd have to look. They were using these twisty clips. And I'm like, well, it's flexible. I'll be able to feed it through the key tag. We'll see. So I got it, tried it. And for these big hanks, it's really helpful because you have the bigger circle. I think I got the 1 inch, 25 millimeter. I think it was millimeters. And if I wanted to, that's a 50 yard hank split into 2 bundles. I could seriously put another bundle on here. It'd be kind of snug. They'd fight with each other, but I could do it. And so if you have one of the like Mrs. Sada's, you can get a serious amount on those little twist clips. And then the other color in this piece is Ecru, which is actually in part 2. It wasn't in part 1, but in part 2, 2 of the rose bushes are white flowers and 2 of them are red flowers. So that gives us the tricolor palette. And I was thinking initially that I would probably keep a minimum of the minimal black into my Firebane use, And when I started stitching it, probably because of where it's falling and how it bleeds together at that junction, it looked more purple, like really, really dark purple. I've seen some roses that are so dark purple they look almost black, but in the right lighting you can see the purple. So I was like, ooh, I like that. It's found in nature, I'll keep it. Then my next piece was a whip from a different time, and it was a Halloween Sal by Creatively Crafting last year. And I basically had back stitching to do along this tail, giving the cat the tail, giving the spider his eyes, or her eyes, and legs, and a web. And then I had mentioned that I had seen a couple of people actually had done a ghost. And so I looked at the ghost sketches and ideas and picked one and put it in there. And it really turned out well. So this is all finished. So, you know, knocked that out. Oh, and I put in some back stitching in Happy. Put some green back stitching in there. But yeah, it's one afternoon and evening and knocked that piece out. So that was my first 3 days. Yeah, the first, second, and third. And then I went down the genealogy rabbit hole and didn't come up for 4 days. When I came up, I had several whips that I worked on, as well as another new start. All right, so this is the project that I didn't work on, even though I was supposed to. I started it last May, and it still just has a little tiny corner. This little tiny corner finished. That's it, that's all. It was another, you know, it was I think the final day that I really fell down the genealogy rabbit hole. With stitching, I can spend quite a bit of time, almost tunnel vision. If a project's going really well, I will stitch on it until somebody, something, or hunger makes me put it down. And then it's kind of the same thing with genealogy. If I'm clicking away and, you know, finding documents, then I'm just entering the data and cross-referencing the data and getting it all compiled together in one location. And sometimes it goes very quickly, and in terms of, I find a lot of documents to establish that this person, you know, is a relation of another person, and then other times it's, you know, like wading through a rainstorm. You can't seem to find the sunshine. In this case, you can't seem to find any documents that prove the person existed. So, you know, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not so easy, but I enjoy the puzzle piece aspect of, you know, taking what information I do know and finding corroborating evidence, digging through the newspapers, digging through other record sets, and piecing together the story of the person's life. And then going back a generation and piecing together the story of that person's life. So yeah, needless to say, 221B bookmark did not happen. I do have a couple more days this month where I can maybe slot it in and get some work done on it. Then I had a new start day, and the new start was Mr. Darcy Minion. And that's 1,000 stitches, something like that. He's got a little bit of Cunning in his hat, Cunning around the goggles frame, and then little tiny Cunning buttons on his jacket sleeve. So he needs his pants, and then he can be cut out, and little memory thread roses can be made for him to hold, and he can get all glued together. And then it's on to Lizzie for the other one of the Minion set. Then I had a whip day. This is a whip I started at the beginning of the year. And I had already gotten a good chunk of the yellow in on Snow White's section, but I managed to get Snow White's hair, her little bow, the apple, her sleeves, and started putting in some of the like shirts of all the dwarves. Dwarves are a bunch of like 1-stitch, 3-stitch, color change, and only 1 or 2 of them share the same colors. So it's a lot of starting and stopping on the dwarves, but I still did make some decent progress. I think I got 500 or so stitches in on that day. And that one I worked on Mother's Day, so my stitching day started really late. Saturdays and Sundays I tend to stitch all day because I don't have work in the morning. And we had Mother's Day, so we went and took out my husband's mom. I went to a local brunch, and then she was having some issue with her computer, so we stopped by the house so he could take a look and try to fix it. And while we were hanging out, the nieces and his sister-in-law stopped by, and so, you know, just had a very relaxed morning and afternoon, and got home and picked up the stitching and just stitched for a while. So that was our Sunday for Mother's Day. Then Monday I went back to I didn't have anything to stitch on, anything that was a Maynia start from last year. So I went back to the Alice in Wonderland Sal and put in the roses, you know, finished the arbor posts and put in the roses and started part 2. Then Tuesday, let's see if get this collected. Tuesday I picked up a whip that will be a very long-term project. It's Pirate's Retreat by HAED. And I had been doing mostly diagonal stitching, and I had a day where I was faithfully doing the diagonal stitching, but I was up in the parrot's head, and in like 4 hours I did 200 stitches, and I felt like I had done nothing but start threads, which is true. I had started a bunch of threads and it was just getting to be a little much for me. I like parking, but I like parking when I want to, not parking after every stitch and rethreading. I've just come to the conclusion that that drives me absolutely bonkers. So then I was like, okay, let's do the block diagonal, and that was even driving me crazy. So I just picked a thread and stitched until I ran out of stitches or thread, whichever came first, in that general area. And so underneath, you can see, you know, I've brought down a good chunk of various threads. I have a lot of stuff scattered. And then I've come over here and have started finishing off whatever threads I have in this scroll, until I eventually get rid of all of my random tails and just have ones that are few and far between. I'll still probably work sort of in a diagonal, and I say sort of meaning, you know, I'm getting very close to not being able to continue further with the scroll until I move the frame. But I've got all this area that I can do, that I can stitch. So, you know, get this done and then come up and start, you know, working my way in a bit of a diagonal. But diagonal in terms of what's the, you know, what's the next stitch that needs to be filled in, grab that color, use it till it's gone, till the thread's gone, or till I'm out of stitches in the immediate vicinity. And then, you know, continue on. It's a great design. It's just not very, at least this section is not very diagonal friendly. You know, you have a parrot and you've got the monkey, and all of this is its own set of colors. The pillar, or actually it's a scroll. The scroll is its own set of colors. So you can really focus in and just, you know, work on one little section and really work it out. There's confetti, but generally once you get, you know, it's like even the hat, that was probably a dozen colors in the band, and so the band is very confetti heavy, the striping, and the skull and crossbones is very confetti heavy, but it's all the same colors, just one stitch here, one stitch there, mixed together. And then all of that is 310. So it's like, you know, if when I was working diagonal, I'd have just this little bit of confetti stuff and a little bit of 310. But when I was finishing this part up this week, you know, I brought down the strands that were hanging for the band and stitched them out until I ran out of stitches to put in. And then filling in the 310 was really fast. So I've, in two days of stitching, this one I was working on some other things around the house and only put in the after dinner time. and I got 300 stitches done in one day, one evening, which for after dinner, that's 3-4 hours. On a confetti heavy piece, 75 stitches an hour is pretty darn good. And then the next day I got home from work and sat down and worked on it and did 300 plus stitches in the afternoon before switching over to my next piece. So this piece I think will go a lot faster and be more satisfactory now that I'm not trying to religiously stitch on the diagonal and park. Nothing against parking. It's a great way to temporarily house a thread while you wait for or put in something else that you need now. So after putting in the last of my stitches on Pirates last night, I picked up the piece that I really needed to work on because it was its birthday. And this was a piece that, as I mentioned in my first video, I love the design, but quickly discovered that the designer adores fractionals, and I did not like doing fractionals on Hardanger. So since I had picked Hardanger, this was all I ended up doing last year, and I never picked it back up because of the fractionals. So I decided this year I was going to restart it, and so I pulled some new fabric, put it in the bag, and last night when I pulled it out, I restarted it on a piece of Monaco that I dyed. So I'm doing 2/2, and that's in the 500 stitch range for an evening. I did across the top of the head and down and around the eye, and then I came over this way and did all of that. And then I was like, okay, I've got a chunk of the outlining done. I'm going to start in on the purple. And the purple went really fast because I'm just block filling. So, stitching all the way across, stitching back. And I am stitching it, what is it, Danish style? Where you do one X at a time. Some pieces I do that way. I do my perforated paper that way all the time. Some pieces I mix the styles back and forth, kind of depending on if there's, a handful of stitches over here and I need to kind of get over there for the rest of them. I'll go down and stitch the little tiny section on one side, and then I will jump back up and finish out the row Danish style to pop down and do the big chunk. So I'm not doing a lot of start and stop and having to feed tails. I hate feeding tails if I can avoid it. So I do tend to carry, this actually isn't too bad on the carries, but you'll see on here we had one gold button and then one gold button in Cunning. I wasn't about to try to feed the start and the stop after one stitch, only to go feed a start and a stop. So when I got done with this one, I picked up a couple of threads in the middle, came over, stitched, and then finished, so that it was not a lot of starting and stopping, and yet there was some security if for some odd reason something happened. So that's where I've gotten with my stitching so far. I have a decent number of new pieces, or of pieces from last year's Maynia this coming week and the final week of May. We will see how those go. The Genealogy rabbit hole is still available. We'll see if I've got a bunch of new records that'll drag me back in. Sometimes I just let it sit and percolate on Ancestry, and then I go back in and start evaluating. Okay, so before I forget or wrap this up and realize once again I didn't say so, I have been watching FlossTube and wanted to give a shout out to Niecie Lynn. I have multiple times sent little blurbs to my sister, to the point that she finally was like, hey, who's that FlossTuber that you watch that's so funny? Okay, here it is. And she started watching, and I think she binge watched the entire channel. I love her sense of humor. It's that down-to-earth Southern charm. Tells it like it is, doesn't sugarcoat things, but does it in such a way that even if you're being scolded, you don't quite feel like you got scolded. And then Allegra Stitches, yeah, that's what I wrote. She's in Alaska, and I really enjoyed watching her first FlossTube. You gave me some ideas and thoughts on how to customize my pieces with custom chenille trim, and reminded me how fortunate we are. You know, California, or Californians in general, I think, like to make a big deal about our cost of living. And yes, we have fairly high cost of living, but we have it easy compared to people in Alaska, where stuff sometimes won't even be available because the providers won't ship, or you have to wait months. So thanks for that little gentle reminder that things may be more costly than the Midwest or other places where the cost of living is lower than California and the Bay Area, but we can still get 99% of what we want in the time frame we want it, and without extra major surcharges for shipping. So thank you for the gentle reminder. Bumble Stitches, I enjoyed tremendously. And then to Martini Stitcher, I have watched her FlossTube for a while now, and I just want to say thank you for sharing your story and being another voice to bring awareness to mental health. No matter what guise it comes in, it is real, and it is not something that people should be shamed over or made to feel inferior because they're going through this struggle. I've had numerous discussions with people on the subject of mental health, and they usually get a shell shock. It tends to be on controversial subjects, usually legislation, and we're not going to go into all of that. But I'm the kind of debater that I'll sit and listen to to two people go back and forth, and I'll play devil's advocate. Or I'll throw the monkey wrench in the works about something else. And a recent one was reports that there's a push to make Mother's Day be called Birthing Person's Day. And I listened to the different arguments for and against this movement, and then I finally looked and I said, for a group that's claiming that they need to be more inclusive of certain groups, they're being discriminatory towards anyone who is a parent or provides that parental role but has not birthed the child or the person. And it's something that I'm fairly familiar with. I've known people who were adopted. And I'm sorry, their parents, their mother is just as much their mother as their birth mom. Their father is just as much their father as their biological birth father. It's something that is not defined by one set of criteria. And it's frustrating to me that people can get tunnel vision. I am very much for inclusion. But you can't go so far to one extreme that you end up doing the same action you tried to fix for one group to another group. Honestly, the best day will be when it doesn't matter the color of our skin, whether we learn things differently in different ways, whether we have a physical challenge, mobility challenge of some sort. It doesn't matter. And a great day will be the day when, whether you're male or female, Black, white, Indian, American Indian, Native American, I forget which is the PC term. I'm sure somebody will let me know. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, when somebody can walk into a place and simply based on their competence get a job. You know, I'm a member of a union, a theatrical union, and I've heard many stories from the other stagecrafts and seen it to some degree in the reverse. Wardrobe, which is my area in the theater world, unless you are part of the big guns, the general overarching stagecraft union, if you are a separate union and just a wardrobe local instead of a mixed local, there is a higher than 50% chance that your employers have already or will negotiate in such a way that keeps your department at a much lower pay grade than the other stagecrafts. And they'll use the arguments that it's always been this way, or this is work that anybody can do. And I'm sorry, even the laundry is not something anybody can do, because we have to know in a hot hurry how to treat all kinds of makeup stains, other stains, get odors out. You know, there are similarities to doing your laundry at home, and anybody who's done their home laundry has a leg up on somebody who's never done laundry in their life, because you at least have the basics down of color sorting and hot water versus cold water and basic stain removal treatments. But there's an art form to getting green Glenda makeup out of her costumes and doing it in such a way that you don't get the entire garment, which won't dry in time, wet. But even with bargaining power of a union, first and foremost, our employers see us as women. And yes, my union's 2/3 of it's women. And that's detriment number one. Detriment number two is they see it as anybody can do your job. Not, you have skill sets in laundry and garment repair and garment alteration and garment building that not everybody has. You have a knowledge of fabrics and how to iron them or steam them, you know, how to maintain them, that not everybody has. Can it be learned? Yes. Does the employer know it? No. I remember asking for burn cream because the steamer spit on me and I wanted to treat it right away. And I got asked, well, what were you doing next to something hot? I'm steaming the costumes for the performance. Steamers sometimes spit boiling hot water on you. Can I please get the burn cream? I was like, I don't have time to argue over why I got burned. I'm doing my job. I got burnt. It's minor. I just want to do some preventative treatment. So anyway, that's my off-topic tangent about inclusion and the fact that we need to do more work on breaking down the differences or the differentiating criteria. It's not even that there's differences, because there aren't necessarily differences. It's the fact that society has allowed and is allowing different criteria to be used for the same types of work, the same types of activities. And because of that, there's discriminatory behavior towards various groups of people. So, haul number 1. I really enjoy dyeing for cross stitch floss, and this is my latest order. I have, let's see if I can read this backwards. I can't. Cranberry, which is like a mauve pink all the way to an aquamarine turquoise. Then we have Pretty in Pink, which is pinks and grays. Cherry Mash, which is mauve to baby pink. Smoke, which is the closest to a monochromatic color that I've seen from her. It's a very light gradation in grays. We have Poe, which is a much darker, deeper variegation in grays. So we have the dark gray all the way to the very light gray. We have Coastal, which is green with gray and then like an aquamarine. Dark Earth, which has some browns and then very blue, like bright medium blue, and then a teal color. And then we have Light Earth, which, sorry, I don't think the light's doing very well. Light Earth, which is a lighter variation on the Dark Earth. So still that teal-y green and the bright aqua blue with some brown. It looks like almost some green. So that's my floss order. And then additionally, she started a floss of the month. So it's for, I want to say she said it was 25 yards. So those other hanks were 50. So if I'm going to get a color, I might as well get a big giant hank. These don't have names on them, but it's a really pretty little set. So this one is, it's variegated, but it's like a raspberry color, very pink. And then this one's also lightly variegated, and it's more of a mauve, so a little bit between purple and pink. This one's variegated and is very much purples. And then this one is a mix of all of them. So this is highly variegated. So 3 lightly variegated from really bright pink through to purple, and then a highly variegated mix. So this would make a great little color palette for stitching up something where you don't necessarily want a lot of colors, but you want that variety. Because you could have sections that were just the raspberry, sections that were just the mauve, sections that were just the purple, and then you could have tying sections tied together with the highly variegated one. Then from the Black Box Society, I was visiting their Vault Extras store. And I found, or I saw an unboxing of this way after I could do it, or I could get it. So I didn't get the box because the box is long gone, but they had the year 1 band sampler. And so I picked up the pattern for that. And then I picked up also from their site, a Notions, collapsible Notions box. And I've put it together because the snaps make a lot of noise. And I mean, it's fairly substantial. This is, I think the foam core in my hand is about 15 inches long. So it's in the neighborhood of 8 inches in diameter. Try not to make a ton of noise. And then it goes flat. You unsnap all the little corners and it goes flat. So it makes it something that you could, very easily travel. You could travel it easily, or you could just leave it snapped together all the time. Then I was at Joann's and I picked up some vinyl. In particular, I picked up a piece of vinyl. One of the items I got as a bridal shower gift was an antique tablecloth from my husband's aunt, and she said she had never used it because she was always very worried about it getting dirty. And I took a look at it and it was like, yeah, I'd be worried about it getting dirty too. It's white with cross stitch and embroidery on it. Don't know if those threads are color fast. Don't really want the white fabric, white linen getting stained. But I don't want it to just sit in a box. At the very least, it would be really lovely to, place on our table in between, it's just the two of us right now. Unless we have company over, we don't eat at the table that often. We eat at the couch. Or we've recently got some little patio chairs and a couple little patio tables, and so it's starting to get really nice outside. So we've been eating outside more often than we've ever eaten at our dining room table. So it's like, but I still want to protect it. I could see myself putting this out on the table in between uses, in between family events, but I want to protect it, even when it's just being pretty. So I was at Joann's and picked up some 20 millimeter vinyl to just do a vinyl covering over the top of it. And while I was there, I got some vinyl to make myself some pretty project bags instead of just the inexpensive ones I've been using. And I'm at the cutting table and she says, "Is that everything?" And I said, "Can I see that bolt of fabric over there? How much is on there?" It was like 1.1 yards or something like that. I said, "I'll take what's there." It just made me smile. See, we've got pasta and delectable and seafood and veggies and barista. I think that's all of them. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this yet, but I saw it, thought it was cool. I probably will make a project bag out of it, or more than one. And then while I was there, I also grabbed some fat quarters. This one has bluebirds and cherries on a polka dot back. This one's roses on a green polka dot back. This one is a deck of cards with some mermaids and birds and roses. It's just ships, kind of slightly nautical, slightly all over the place actually. And then they had one that was a white background instead of the black background. That one's got a shark with an anchor. Other one probably does too, it's just not as visible. So I picked up those. That was basically my haul for the week, for the last couple weeks. And then I got to thinking about a lot of people are doing or have done a project for them for their birthday. They call it a birthday start. And I was like, I don't have anything that's been started on my birthday. So let me take a look and see if there's anything that I would really like for myself on my birthday, and then I'll start working on it on my birthday. But get it, even though my birthday is not till July, get it put together. Especially since now we're taking a little 2-day trip the weekend of my birthday. And so it's like I can take it with me and, maybe start it that weekend. A couple days early, but start it that weekend. So I was looking through everything and I had probably 5 different designs that I could have gone for, but just wasn't 100% sold on them. And then I saw this one, and I'll put a better picture. It says, "In a world full of trends, be a classic." And there's something in the neighborhood of 60 colors in here in DMC, and I was like, at the end of the day, I think this could be very much a piece that doesn't need 60 colors of DMC. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one color for all the lettering and the lady with the dress, and then one color for anything that is not the floral, almost the type damask. It's almost got a bit of a damask. I'm never 100% sure where the accent goes on that word. Patterning in the wallpaper, if you will, the background. So I thought, leave that as negative space instead of stitching it. The pattern does import into Pattern Keeper, although I'm probably going to end up just kind of winging it, because I looked, and with all the different colors, it's not a straightforward, okay, these colors are background and these colors are my negative space, so let's just make them all white. And then this is my dress and my letters. The dress is mostly 310, but there's other colors in there, particularly in the swirl edges, that it's kind of, it could go one way or the other. So it's going to be one of those where as I stitch, I determine this is negative space, this is not. And now I just have to make up my mind on my floss. So these were the flosses that I was looking at. I'm looking at this one or this one for my dress and the words. And I'm probably gonna go with Poseidon because it's slightly less, it's less heavily variegated. It's variegated, but it's less defined in its color changes. Whereas this does have a decent amount of change. I like this one. But for the dress, I don't know that it works. And then I'm kind of leaning towards one of these two over the Rose Garden for the background. I intentionally avoided any of my variegateds that had blue in them because I didn't want a chance for the dress to, or the letters in particular, because they're not very thick, to fade into the background because there's not enough contrast. So I'm gonna decide which of these, and then it's on I'm gonna do it on this white opal Newcastle and 40 count over 2, so that where there's white, it's a white shimmery sparkle. So that's my future planning. Very much in the future. It's my let's mull on it and percolate and look at it and then put it away and think about it some more. I'll probably still be trying to decide between the threads until the day I start. And then once I cut it and start it, I'll be 100% good. So, I can't think of anything else to share. Let me know if you watched FlossTube 1 and how you found the sound. Were there any cards that I couldn't hear because I've gone tone deaf to them? Because if the audio background noise is better in this room, I will continue in this room and probably just try to work on the lighting. Right now it's just an overhead light, and the glare through the window was such that I know I'm pale, but it completely made me disappear. That's impressive for sunlight with me wearing black. I was just a shadow. So I closed the blinds, cut the sunlight out. So I'll need to, play with it a little bit if this room works better than the living room for the noise, the background noise. So let me know about that. And I want to thank everyone who subscribed and commented on my first video. I really appreciate the support and all of your lovely comments. And I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I enjoyed making it and sharing with you. See you soon.